The Index anime is like Marmite. You either love it or you hate it. From my perspective, I'm not a huge fan of the anime, but I can still enjoy it for what it is, despite the fact that the light novels completely shit on them in terms of quality. But if you honestly love the Index anime, that's completely fine. It's okay to like bad things. Well, sometimes. You're entitled to your opinion, regardless. And oh yeah, some of you might be thinking I'm only referring to the third season, but nope. I'm talking about the entire thing. All 3 seasons are very poor in my opinion. Before I talk about its problems, I'm going to talk about the things I like about the Index anime to make things fair. Firstly, Accelerator and Last Order. Pretty much the only 2 characters they didn't butcher in the anime. Their portrayals are well fleshed out, with the exception of Index 3, as I feel like Index 3 kind of missed a core part of Accelerator's character in that part of the novels. But I'll get onto that later on when I talk about Index 3 specifically. Accelerator's development is presented effectively in the story, and Last Order complements his character. The chemistry between these characters is what makes it compelling to the audience. Accelerator was pretty much the only thing I loved when I was first watching this series, and I'm pretty sure people feel the same way. Well, that was when I was a filthy secondary who had not read the light novels yet. I think the Japanese acting and seiyus are really good, namely Nobuhiko Akimoto, who voices Accelerator, Rina Sato as Misaka, and Toshihiko Seki as Alistair, to name a few. Seki, I feel, also needs more love for his acting in this. While he hasn't got much to work with in terms of his script, his voice is hella creepy and really fits Alistair. Also, I like some of the tracks on the OST that I forgot the names of. The openings are enjoyable as well, and the animation in Season 2 is pretty good, and some of the scenery backgrounds are pretty. Anyway, enough talking about pretty colours, let's move on. My criticisms of Index are not composed of simply, duh, the anime did not include every single line in the light novel, therefore it is bad. I'm aware that they can't include everything from the novel as an anime adaptation. I am disappointed that they did not include the important parts from the novel, at least the parts which add more depth to the characters, but it's not my criticism. I'm very aware that manga adaptations are far easier to adapt than light novel series. That's probably one of the reasons why the Railgun series has been superior to Index, at least in terms of the anime. I know it's not feasible for them to adapt everything from a book into whether it's an anime or a film. They can't use every single line, but I'll get on to what parts they should have included to make the characters, plot, etc. more convincing. Alright, let's start with my problems with the first 2 seasons. I'll save Index 3 until after. People often say Index Season 1 and 2 did a good job at adapting the events of the novels, perhaps excluding Deep Blood and the Angel Fall arcs, with the amount of episodes they had. This is true in some respect, as the anime follows the narrative of the light novel well. It only makes severe changes in the arcs I already mentioned. So, why do I think the Index anime is mediocre and the light novels are amazing? It's because the problems lie elsewhere. Poor direction. The main reason why the Index anime is a mediocre shonen battle series is because of the terrible directing. I'm looking at you, Hiroshi Nishikiori. Hiroshi is the director of each season of Index, and while he did get a lot of abuse on Twitter after Index Season 3 aired, which prompted him to quit Twitter temporarily, although I'm not sure if he ever came back to it, he is a poor director in my opinion, but we shouldn't harass him on Twitter. I think it's from both Western and Japanese fans. I don't think that's okay. Although I will criticise his directing just because it's constructive and I want Index to be the best it can be, whether it's the light novel or anime. So why do I think his directing is bad? I think it's either Season 1, Episode 3 or 4, where they dedicate an entire episode of lollies singing to use the angel healing spell. So I'm talking about Index and Komoi Sensei. And the entire episode is just them singing to summon the angel. It's one of the worst episodes I've ever seen in anime, period. There's just no action, no plot progression. It's just way too overdrawn in terms of the direction. They could have moved on to the plot, but nope. And it's even worse when you research to find out this scene Guess how many pages it was in volume 1 of the light novel? 8. So they used 8 pages from the light novel into an entire episode of singing lollies. I know I'm stressing this example as being of it being bad direction, but that is because it's the best example I can think of, and it just exemplifies the other instances of bad direction, which I'll get onto in a bit. But I mean, come on, surely alarm bells would be ringing. Couldn't we instead dedicate this towards character development or something? No? Anyway, getting on to the disappointing portrayal of characters in this series. It is not just lolly bullshit the anime is guilty of. In terms of character depth, the Index anime lacks plenty, with the only character who has any significant amount is Accelerator. Let's take Toma for example. In the anime, you don't really know why he's acting in the way he does, by wanting to save Index, and why after losing his memories he still wants to save people. In the light novel, we know what is going on inside Toma's head, which makes him much more interesting than the bland character we see in the anime. They also miss out Toma's backstory of how he was treated like shit by the other children as a child, as the harbinger of misfortune. And his dad only mentions his misfortune he had when he was a child, but nothing about the abuse in detail. And this could have been put in the anime to make Toma a more deeper character, give him a backstory. This backstory is important. Why would you cut it out? It fleshes his character more. Like, I don't understand why you would choose to have fan service scenes and lolly bullshit, lolly singing instead of something important like this, which fleshes out the main character of the fucking story. Come on. And this isn't something that can be covered in a single sentence either, like with the case of Kanzaki and Style. They are friends of Index, yes, who want what's best for her and have been deceived by the Anglican Church and are forced to do something cruel to their friend, who now thinks of them as enemies. In the anime, you don't really feel any emotional attachment from them, although at least they have something interesting to their personalities rather than the other adaptations of other characters, perhaps. Many of the villains have potential as characters, as their ideals clash with Toma's, which provides interesting themes of morality and redemption. However, they are just far more well written in the light novel, with much more detail, which makes you care somewhat for these villains and understand their motives. I know it can't be as detailed as the light novel, as it has an advantage with the amount of text, but couldn't the director switch from the lolly bullshit with more character focus? Next complaint. It's boring. I know this is pretty subjective, but I've heard a lot of people who watch the anime say it's boring, including some of my friends who enjoy anime, and I got them to watch Index, and a lot of them were really bored when they were watching Index 1 and 2. I don't think any of them have seen Season 3 yet. But yeah, I know this is subjective. If you enjoy it, that's fine, but if you are entertained by it for the most part. I mean, there were parts of it I did find entertaining, as I'll get onto now, but just a lot of it is just, ugh. So I'll explain now, at least from my personal experience with the series. When I was watching Index 2 for the first time, I actually skipped the Adriatic Sea arc, or the Ice Boats arc, to get to the Accelerator parts, as I had researched that Accelerator was appearing after this arc, since I was just desperate to watch more of him because he was the most entertaining. Almost all of the magic-based arcs were kind of boring due to the unimpressive fight scenes. What I mean by that is, like, I'll use an example of the Gabriel fight in Season 1 where Misha Kroitsev and Kanzaki fight. In the light novel, that was a pretty cool fight. Like, there was a lot of description and the stakes were pretty high. But in the anime, it didn't look very impressive, to say the least. This is supposed to be a fight between an angel and a saint, and it wasn't very as grand as it could be in the anime. And also the magic terminology is kind of confusing if you don't pay attention, and especially when they miss out key plot details, and the uninteresting characters. Accelerator and Kihara Amata were crazy enough to make the show somewhat entertaining, but with the bland adaptation of Toma, fighting lolly nuns you don't really care about, and the plot twist in that arc, which was better delivered in the light novel again, or anything else for that matter in the magic arcs. When I mentioned unimpressive fight scenes, I just feel like the fight scenes are far more tense and dangerous in the light novels. Take Terma versus Accelerator, for example. In the light novels, it mentions how Terma is covered in blood. He's on the verge of being beaten by Accelerator. In the anime, he doesn't really have, well, he has some scratches, but he doesn't have any blood or anything. It seems he defeated Accelerator, the strongest Esper in the city, far too convincingly. And thank God Railgun S fixed this. They censored the Hound Dogs fight with Accelerator and some other scenes, but that's kind of a nitpick, to be honest. Not really a massive issue. Anyway, moving on to the missing plot details. I don't expect the anime to mention everything like I've already said multiple times. However, missing out that Heaven Chancellor is the co-founder of Academy City, that Alistair wrote the Book of the Law and had a deceased daughter, these are important plot details, and those are just a few of them they miss out. Why can't we have the plot details that actually matter instead of lolly bullshit and fan service scenes that don't particularly matter? There are some others that are missing out due to the fact I haven't watched the anime in a while, but you get the point. Changing Angel Fall. They removed the fight with the Aureolus dummy from Deep Blood, most likely due to time restraints. However, they completely changed Angel Fall. Rather than having an arc which honestly felt like a filler in the anime, they removed the serial killer that Kanzaki, Motoharu and Terma team up to hunt down and give us some weird ass arc filled with fan service and a feeling with what the fuck is going on. I know this arc isn't really the best for in terms of being the most well written arc, even in the light novel, since it's kind of weird how the people next to Terma all change into people that he recognizes. Although I'll have to check it up. Angel Fall spell's quite complicated to me in terms of how it works. But yeah, it's kind of like a bit of a plot coincidence or convenience, you could say. Anyway, the tone. To describe the tone of the Index anime, I wouldn't know where to begin. The light novel has serious and lighthearted moments, just like with most series, but these are pretty balanced nicely, I feel. In the anime, the fanservice scenes stand out more than the plot and characters, and that's not very good. Okay, this sums up my thoughts about the Season 1 and Season 2, so we'll move on to Season 3 now. Oh boy, I hope you're all ready for my thoughts on Season 3. It's gonna be spicy. Okay, Index 3. The one everyone hates. So, Index 3 got absolutely shat on by both Western and Japanese fans, probably more so than the other two seasons. Why is this the case? At least with the other two, they took time with the arcs. While mismanaging the content included perhaps, they didn't rush every single arc. Index 3 tries to include 6 entire arcs in 26 episodes. Imagine if Hunter x Hunter 2011 was the only 26 episodes when it's over 100. It's pretty much the best equivalent I can find of this. And because they were rushing through arcs, we have little time to explain what the fuck is going on. Luckily, I already had read the novels by this point, so I could understand, but many anime-only watchers were hella confused by it. The presentation of the plot lacked cohesion, which is very important in telling any fucking story. Also, speaking of the Accelerator stuff from earlier, I didn't feel like Accelerator's character was fleshed out as it could be. I mean, he goes on rambling about how he's still a villain, but in the novel, at this part in where it takes place, you feel like Accelerator's cut himself off from the light in his life. He's cut himself off from Last Order, Yamikawa, Yoshikawa, in order to protect Last Order. And it's like he's almost deviating towards becoming what he once was in the Sisters arc. And yet you don't really feel that. It's not really given much depth at all. And I feel like that was a missed opportunity. Anyway, you would think they would have learnt the lessons of Season 1 and 2 and would at least try to use every single episode wisely to get through this much content. But you thought wrong. Episode 1 is 90% filler. I'm exaggerating there, but it's a lot of filler. Excluding the scenes at the end, I think. And I know, let's put Misaka in a shower for no reason. Because you brain-dead Makoto tards want some 14-year-old naked anime girl to jerk your tiny penises off to. Okay, I apologise for my vulgar language. It appears Index 3 has made me a bit triggered. The other main criticism many had with Index 3 was the animation. The animation just looks half-assed and sloppy in most scenes. The way Gabriel's wings move look kinda lame, and making dark matter CGI was also pretty dumb as well. Although the animation isn't really the main problem, a lot of people mistake the art in the shots for being bad or low effort as bad animation. But animation is how the pictures move, when it's more the art direction and art design which is affecting how good the actual art looks in, like the framed shots, if you get what I mean. In just about nearly every scene, a character will have a derpy face, putting Dragon Ball Super to shame, or their bad body proportions will be messed up. This lack of detail is really bad, especially considering JC Staff was supposed to be adapting World War III, one of the most important arcs of the series, and a conclusion to the first light novel series of Index. Does this degree of quality fit a concluding arc to an epic action series? Hell no! So those are my problems with the Index anime. Read the novels, you filthy Railgun fans.